Hi there. It's so great to be here with you for this service design webinar. You are more than 370 who subscribed, registered for this webinar, and I'm so excited to have this time with you. So let's basically jump right into it without a long conversation. As you see in the title slide here, I've written webinar 00.1, maybe in the hope that there will be more, but even better for me was this notion that this is still a prototype. So a few things might go wrong today, but I think this will be a learning opportunity for me. So if you see something going on which isn't right at all, just leave a comment in the chat and I'll review it at the end as a learning experience for me. Okay, so as you may know, I'm pretty excited. We already have 20 people in. It's going to take a little bit of time to have everybody in, but for that, we're going to start with a little question. I have a little question for you. Where are you from? So if you're on YouTube, you might see on the side or below a chat function. And there in the chat function, you can just say, hey, I'm from India, this city, or I'm from this other city. I think this is kind of like a lovely way to start this webinar so that we see that there is people from all around the world, as I assume from the name list that I received. But let me answer the question first. Where am I from? I'm from Switzerland and from the little city of Lausanne. We see that we have someone from Brazil, we have someone from the US, but that is currently living in Europe, United Arab Emirates. Hey, India, that's, I'm always amazed by the service design community in India. We have a lot of people. Also Belgium, so welcome everyone and welcome from every country. Again, we have someone else from India. So you can keep an eye on the chat to see all the countries coming in. And if you wanted to know a bit more about me, this is not the right time because I won't chat a lot about myself. But fortunately, I have a crazy name, which is this one. And you can very easily Google that. And as I have this crazy name, there are not many people with that name. So you might fall on something about myself. And maybe the one thing that you should know about me is that I have this belief that it's fucking easy to learn service design. And I think that's why we are here today, is to learn more about service design, to get better in this field of service design. And because I believe it's so easy to learn service design, I have a bit of a crazy dream, even my wife doesn't know about that. So, it's a bit of a secret crazy dream that I have. And this secret crazy dream that I have is that in my lifetime, I get to motivate, excite 8 million people about service design. It's a crazy dream. I know. But I'm sure I will receive a lot of help, and I already have to reach that goal. And why 8 million? Because, I live in Switzerland, and Switzerland is about 8 million people. So wouldn't it be amazing to reach out to 8 million people about service design, like the size of my country? That will be a dream. And as I said, the goal for me is to make this feel like a conversation, like a conversation in a bar with a mate, without, the fancy academic and boring stuff, but more, like have you have a conversation with someone who had maybe a beer or two and is a little bit tipsy, so he'll just cut the crap out and go right into the interesting stuff. And exactly, so that's the dream that I have. But there are a lot of you who are already helping, and I want to thank you for that support. Especially, I want to thank these people. These are the people who are today in the webinar and that have supported my work through the Swiss Innovation Academy, for example, by buying a book or a template. And these guys, these people made it possible for me to do today's an event that is completely free. So these are the sponsors of the event. And so I want to say a little thank you to Natalia, to Zach, to Deidre, to Gavin, to Anastasia, to Jennifer, to Srinivas, Sherry, Giovanna, Pamela, Steve, Ellie, Danila, Yulia, Paolo, Tudor, Miguel, Julia, Anahi, and Jamie. These are all the people that are doing a lot for the service design community, so they deserve a shout out. And maybe even a chat. I see that we're still speaking in the chat. We now have a bit of a sense of from where we come all from. And now I would love you to of one person that you're thankful for, because either she made you discover service design or it's someone that does a lot for the community. I think it's a lovely thing to see in the chat pop up all these names of lovely people, and we also can have kind of this thankfulness moment before we get right into it. So a lot of people helped, and we have a plan for today. The plan is very simple. I'm gonna present you a few of my favorite service design principles, and then I'll answer a few community questions that I received via LinkedIn or via the Swiss Innovation Academy website about service design. So let's jump right into this. But before that, a little note about how we're gonna do this. We'll do this like a trailer, like these movie trailers where a lot happens in 30 seconds or 2 minutes, and it gets you a sense of the movie, of the action, but it doesn't reveal everything. But it gets you motivated to then go into theater or more of the movie, or decide that this wasn't something for you. And that's exactly what I'd like to do today. So for each answer I give to a community question, I'll give a lot of information with links and stuff like that that you then can explore after the webinar. But if you say, hey, this wasn't useful, no problem, you didn't lose a lot of time. So that's really how we're gonna do that in there. And so, yes, Daniela, you can be surprised to have your name in the chat and on the slides, because you really helped a lot. So your name deserves to be on these slides. So thank you so much. Okay, so introduction is all set. We now have a lot of people in the room. Thanks again all to join this event. And now let's talk about my favorite service design principles. And it's sometimes a bit hard because it's like babies. I have 300 of them, maybe even more, and I have to pick just a few for the time we have. But I'll do that today with just a few of my favorite service design principles. And you might ask, but Daniel, what's that crazy service design principle thing? And it's quite simple. The way I conceive it, the way I see it, is a service design principle is an idea, a tip, an advice, or a principle that helps you to improve the human experience. And that can be improving the experience of a service, improving the experience of a product, or improving the experience of an organization. But if you want to go even further, I think you can also just improve the human experience between you and your friends, you and your family. Having a dinner party, in a way, is also a service. And I think these elements can all be improved. And these service design principles are just that. Simple tips, simple things that you can use to improve a human experience. So what are the ones, the lovely ones that I would like to share with you today? The first one is one which is a little bit below the belt, at least that's the way I would say it in French. It's about toilets. And there is a big question in the toilet industry, if we can say it like that, or at least in the big places like airports and so on, where they have to do a lot of cleaning. And the question is, how can we reduce the cost of cleaning? And if you put most people on that task, they will say, oh, let's put an AI, oh, let's put a robot that does it all alone. Maybe we have to install some fancy new urinals. They have a lot of ideas, but usually the ideas cost a lot or take a lot of time to implement. But there is a few crazy people in Amsterdam who tried something which is, kind of weird, but it works. What did they do? In the urinals, they put a little fly sticker, a sticker where there is a fly on it. And they put it in the middle of the urinal. And what happens? Guys like me, we still are little children in our hearts. So when we are on the toilet, or at least in the urinal, we tend to play firefighter with our thing. And so if we have something to aim for, which is here in that case, this little fly sticker, we just end up playing and peeing right on that spot. And what happens? A lot less spillage happens, and therefore a lot less cleaning needs to happen. And they even kind of looked at the data, and it seems that this little trick helps to reduce the costs of cleaning the toilets by 8%, which is kind of crazy, if you think. 8% with just a sticker. And getting a sticker, it's pretty damn cheap. So there is something that we can learn here. Sometimes to reduce costs, we can just put a little fly sticker, get people in a playful mode, and then they aim at the right thing, and our service is now clean and easier to clean. That's one. I told you a little bit below the belt, but quite inspiring. And it shows that little things can have a big impact. And this principle has the number 68 because it comes from the book Service Design Principles 1 to 100. And this second one is coming from the book Service Design Principles 101 to 200, which is the second edition that came out just in the early of this year. And one of the things that I like is this principle that says, show me what you want to do for me. And it's inspired by a little Googling that I made back in the days about a tool. I was searching for a storyboard tool, and I fall on this tool, which is called Plot. And they do one thing which is really well. They say for who this is and for who this is not, or what they don't do. For example, they say very clearly here, if you have to work offline, please don't work with us. This is not the right tool for you. So pretty simple, this idea of telling people what you want to do for them. And then you only get the right customers that you really can serve well in your service or in your product. And you can do that in very visual ways like that, or with a little bit of a provocative jokes like I do on the Swiss Innovation Academy website. For example, here I have this quote where I say, learning innovation skills is fucking easy. And then I have the second sentence that says, this should get the academics out of the room. Because the way I teach service design is not at all something that academic people would like. And by doing this, but with this kind of a provocative quote, and then highlighting that this isn't for academics in a bit of a provocative way, I'm sure that I only get people in that are not looking for the most academic stuff, but are looking for kind of a playful time and a playful conversation. So that's another very simple tip that shows that sometimes in service design we just have to do a bit of a marketing communication well at the start, so that then we can serve people at the best of our ability. And now a third favorite service design principle I have, and that's one that comes from a community member, who is called Guy Martin. And he told me this story about his Spotify playlist, where he sometimes plays a song just for fun, like these meme songs that you get on the internet that are kind of fun, but or that you use to make a joke. But then the problem is that Spotify looks at his history and then says, oh, you liked this weird song, so we're going to recommend more of these weird songs. And so his recommendations got all screwed up by this one time where he played this funny song in the office. And that brings us to this service design principle that might come out in the next book, which is, let me remove things your AI shouldn't use for recommendations. And it's something that some companies already do. For example, Amazon already allows you to go in your search history and say, oh, please, I'm going to remove this element, so that the recommendation engine of Amazon doesn't recommend stuff like that. For example, you could remove a gift that you made for your wife, so that you don't get a lot of recommendations about rings, because you don't need one anymore. You're already married. So this is the kind of stuff. Here we go in a bit more digital area, where we see that service design can also help in digital services. So these are three of my favorite, all-time favorite service design principles. And now I'd like to go a bit over the questions that I received from the community. And these are service design questions that I received either via LinkedIn or via messages or via the Swiss Innovation Academy website directly. And so what I will share with you is the question, and then you'll see on my screen that I will share a few notes. And these notes are already public, and you'll get the link at the end of the session, so that you don't have to take your notes yourself, and you get all the links and all the resources that I've told you. You will all receive them in a summary email that you'll receive after the event. So let's get into it. Service design questions. So what are the questions that people ask? We have a first question from Christiana, not Christina, Christiana. And Christina asks, how can I create a compelling and professional digital portfolio as a service designer? And this is a question that comes up a lot. So let me take out my notes and show you that. So how can I build a service design portfolio? It's a good question, especially if you're wanting to start a career in service design. And I have a few tips based on my own experience. And these are based on the fact that I also had to get a job as a service designer and create my own portfolio. And the way I did it, and which helped me land jobs, is this one. So basically, I did Google Slides presentations because they have this kind of lovely thing where you can make them very interactive, but at the same time, put them attached in an email as a PDF, for just like a good old PDF. It's kind of like a mix of the new and the traditional. And the way I structured that is with these 6 elements. So I'm showing a few projects in that portfolio, and obviously I can't show it right now because of NDAs and stuff, but I can give you like the biggest elements in here. And the big elements are these. Challenge. I always try to describe in a form of a question, like how might we or how can we, something that starts like that. What was the problem we were trying to solve? And then I'm giving just a bit of information, about what was the context that made this project especially difficult or interesting for me. Then, because people are looking to hire me and not just understand why the project was good, let's see, I make a list of the tasks and activities on which I personally worked on. Like saying user research, prototyping, and so on. At that time, also, it's great to show it visually. And then we go on the kind of learning aspect where we show kind of less of the ego. The tasks are very ego-centered, what do I do? And then I have a part where in each project I show the team. And I saw that I show people that I wasn't alone working on that project, but indeed there was a whole team. And then I can show my part was this one. What was I a leader, or was I just someone working on the prototyping side? What was my role in that? I think it shows that humility, but also it shows that you understand that projects only happen when there is a big team and when everybody gets involved, which is always a good piece for recruiters to know that you're a team player. And then we get into deep stuff, which is failures. I think it's quite provocative, but again, it breaks this kind of ego thing, which portfolios are all about, where we just show all what went well. And here, I think it's, at least for me, it was interesting to show like one thing that didn't go so well, And again, it shows humility. It shows that you are able to be self-critical, and you're able to see that it's not always easy and all sunshines. And at the end, I have for each project a little learning where I say, okay, what do I take out with me for another project? And these elements are for me the format of one little project. But basically, it's super short, because the idea is that for each point here, I will have just one little sentence to keep it interesting. If you want more about service design portfolios, we have a lot of extra tips in this video that my mate from the Service Design Show, the host is Mark, made. And he also has written a well-documented blog post that you can find here in the notes. And to make it simple, he says a few things. One, which is show how you approach the challenge, show that you learn quickly and adapt. I think the failure aspect really helps them. Very interesting, he speak about the stakeholder side, show how you put together all the different stakeholders, because service design is really about putting stakeholders together. Show your critical thinking, and show what's the specific thing that you brought with your personality. So that's it, for this question from Christiana. Again, thank you, Christiana, for asking this question. You will receive these notes by email just later, but this is just one of the questions. So let's jump into the next question. And in the meantime, if you have other questions that pop up in your mind, please leave them already in the chat, because this will help me kind of gather a lot of questions for maybe another session or for the end of this webinar, where we might have a bit of spare time for more questions. Now we have another question from Ramya, which is how to practice and not give up on service design. So you are a service designer and you recognize that it's a long journey, and it has ups and downs like any love story. And therefore, you ask yourself, okay, how can I keep on practicing and stay motivated and keep on not giving up on this kind of love relationship that I have with service design? And one quote that I kind of like these days is this one. I don't know who wrote that first, but the idea is you are what you do every day. And here for me, what's interesting is wherever you are in your journey as a service designer, if you practice service design every day, you are not giving up. You are still becoming a better service designer. And practicing your skill as a service designer or as a service design enthusiast might be just 5 minutes per day, but that's already a lot, because if you put that over the years, you will get a lot of experience and you will stay motivated, because you see this track record where you see, hey, for 1 year, every day I did something, even if it's 5 minutes, because, in every job, even in a perfect service design job, you still get a lot of crap to do, like a lot of admin things, a lot of project management things, and you might feel like, oh, I'm not doing the task that I really like. And therefore, try to put in every day 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute maybe of one service design task that you can do. Because in the end, the context doesn't matter, If you don't feel like it, you just have to do 5 minutes. It's okay. If your job isn't really about service design yet, because you're very junior, or maybe in your country there isn't a lot of service design opportunities, you still can practice every day. And if you don't have much time because you just got a baby, you still can go to the toilets, at least you should, and therefore you could take an extra minute on your toilet break to read something about service design, or write something, or try something. And that brings me to this point where I think the daily routine is something very important. Where will you put this practice time in your day? Is it after you brush your teeth? Is it when you go to the toilet? Is it right when you wake up? I think having this routine, which is very clear and usually made in a sandwich with another routine, like I brush my teeth, so I will read something about service design, or I go to the toilet and I'll explore a new tool for service designers. These are then very simple things, because every time you'll go to the toilet, automatically you'll take your phone out and you'll go through your list of tools and you'll learn something, you'll practice something. And if you want to go further in that, and you say, hey, that's a cool idea, I like this idea of practicing every day, but have a kind of a plan. For that, I've created this thing which is called Service Design Katas. It's inspired by how in martial arts you improve your skills, and which are simple movements that you can do at home every day. And here it's exactly the same thing. It's kind of little cards which give you simple exercises that you can do in between 5 to 30 minutes. And for example, it's imagine a hotline that doesn't suck. Search on Twitter why hospital sucks. Do a mystery shopping experience. And this service design kata thing, it's a free thing. You can go. There's, I think, a lot learn from that you can use. Okay, and if you want to go even further, if you are someone who loves to read, books that I could recommend on that is, one is Habits. This will help you to learn how you can build better habits and long-standing habits. Really helpful if you want to go further with that. And the other one is Grit, because this will teach you why it matters to stick to this love story that you have with service design and why it matters to stick with it for years. So that was it for this question from Ramya, who said how to practice and not give up. Basically, do it every day because you are what you do every day. We have now another question from the community, which comes from Lydia, who asks, how can I create my own service design principles? So you might have read this book or another one, which is called Service Design Principles, and you think, hey, I can do that too. And exactly, you should, because it's not so difficult in a way. And again, I have a few notes that I'd like to share with you about that. And reminder, you'll get all these notes at the end by email also. Basically, one thing that I noticed is service design principles are really important, at least to me, because there is this lovely quote from this guy, Amos Bronson Alcott, who says, observation more than books and experience, more than persons, are the prime educators. And I think by being a better observer of what happens in services and taking notes about these and turning them into service design principles, you will become a better service designer or someone who can create better services. And to start your own service design principle library, in a way, I think the first thing to note is to find your style, because there are different ways to do it. There are people who do it a bit every day, people who say, I'm going to put a chunk of time, like a week off to work on that. There are people who need the help of other people to get started, and so on. So here you'll find on this link a mini course. It's super simple with a little personality quiz, which will help you discover what type of service design principle creator you are, and then it gives you kind of tips on how to get started if you are that. For example, if you're the productive, it gives you then, okay, the list of things that you can build on, what you might lack, and then it gives you a list of tools and resources that might help you with that mindset that you have. And then the one thing that really helps is to put all your principles in the same place. And this doesn't matter where it is, but just put them all in the same place. The great thing to have is have a few on your notes app, have a few in your SMS, have a few in a WhatsApp group, have a few in a Slack channel. Try to be consistent and have them all in the same location. What's up here, obviously, is to use a tool that's mobile, that works on mobile and on desktop, so that you can use it everywhere, but also it could be just pen and paper that you always have with you. Okay, so I see we have a bit of an issue with the sound. I'll try to correct that. Thank you for the feedback, Sarah Maya. That's really helpful. So let's see if we are now. Let me tell if it's better like this. Is it better for you guys? Okay, I think it feels like better. So Joel says it's either he says it's better or he's having issues too. Tell me if you have also, if now the sound is better. And in the meantime, I'll have a bit of an eye on the chat to see if this has fixed the issue for you guys, and I'll continue. So we said create one place where you put all your principles or all your observations. And if you want, there is even a template that you can get to make your life easier. And the way I usually start for taking notes about an experience that I find interesting, like the fly sticker, is to take a photo. I'll take a photo of the fly sticker and put it in a note somewhere. And this then helps me, get in the mood and understand, okay, what was really interesting here? What was the visual element that helps me to remember this? And also helpful, you can write down the source for later, where it happened and so on, so that once you have the time, you can then go in it and do a bit more of a thinking about this. And here you will see that you have links. These bring you to videos and other articles that I wrote about these elements so that you can go even deeper. And that's then the questions for me where how do you really write a service design principle? You have this observation that you made, you think it's interesting, transform that into something that is something that you can share with teammates and friends and colleagues. So the way I do it, and this is kind of based on observation of myself, where I saw there is a pattern in what I'm writing. And the pattern goes like that. The first thing is I try to set the scene, let people imagine what happened, tell how I feel, starting with emotion. Oh, I was busy in an airport, I was stressed, this happened. Then I show the emotion and the evidence. So I was stuck, it was terrible, because then people kind of empathize with the situation. And then you can show what happens really. And often you just have to translate what is absurd here, what is smart here, and show why this makes sense for us. And then also show the opportunity. And sometimes we just need to reflect a bit larger than the one situation that we had. For example, with the principle that we saw before about the AI things, if we took just this example of Spotify, which was just about don't recommend music to me that I just listened once, that's too narrow as a principle. But if you go a bit wider and you say, hey, don't recommend things, let me tell you what you shouldn't recommend to me, that's a bit wider, but not too wide, like make a smart AI, which is, okay, great, very philosophical, but not helpful at the moment. So it's about finding, kind of a bit of a larger reflection, but not going all over the top. And what helps is then also to ask a question at the end to then help people turn the learning into something actionable. And then if you are really into it, I have a few more notes in here. You can go over that. It will show you how to service design principle title, because often the title really changes the story, and how to find again this right depth of information. Here again, there is a video attached that you can then look at your own pace. But how can you create your own service design principles? That's the question from Lydia. Very simple. Start small, start in one place, and start in a place where usually it's your phone. Take a picture, take a little note, and you already will see that you will make a lot of very interesting observation. And from there, you can then look at what's your personality type, and then create a system around that. Okay, so now we have a question from Sarah. Sorry if I mispronounce your names, but the question is really great. And the question is, how can we get more companies to open up more junior mid-level positions for people transitioning into a service design career? And I don't have a magic answer, but I have a few thoughts that I can share with you about that. So the question is, for me, maybe I would like to be a bit provocative and reverse the question first. Do we really need more junior position? Because my belief is that it's not so much about the title. Practicing service design and service design skills can be done in basically any job. And I think you can be a great secretary who uses service design principles to make your work better. I think you can be a pastor and use service design principles and create a better community. So I'm not sure we need more junior positions, but I think we need to be able to reflect and think, oh, I can use these skills even if I don't have the job title. I can allow myself to do practice service design, even if nobody cares about it. And I think that's kind of like the reverse question that I would love to ask. But now let's come back to the real question, which was, okay, how can we get more junior roles? And often, at least in the design industry, marketing industry, and so on, what happens is that a lot of these junior position levels are in agencies, because agencies need a lot of talent and don't have the money to pay well. So they are really attracted to junior level people. And maybe one of the things that could help is to have more service design agencies, because this will then have help us have much more people into the field with a practice from the agency part. And then once people get more senior, they can then transition maybe in the in-house part. But again, I'd love to put this provocation to you, Saranaya, when we say, how can we get more companies to open up for junior roles and so on? Maybe we don't need. You can just practice the skills already where you are, and maybe we should allow ourselves to do that. And in the best of the worlds, obviously, we would love to have more agencies in service design so that we then also have more junior level positions opening up. Okay, so we still have a few questions, and this one is from Mariana, again, also a community member who sent her question early. And the question is how to implement a service you deliver correctly. So how can you deliver this service correctly? And one thought that I have about this is about the kind of testing side. To be sure that what you have implemented really is correct, the best way is, at least to me, is to continue to test it regularly. Because then you will see, does it still bring value to the users? Does it still help the team? And do they not hate the solution? And does it help the company still make profit and be sustainable? If this is still true and you continue to test that, it's that you're on the right path. And if you see progress on these elements, then it's that you're implementing it right. But outside of that, there is maybe one reflection that can help, is to think about the delivery of a service like the delivery of a software. Many software companies run, like alpha versions, beta versions, and they improve their product over time. And you can think about the delivery of a service like that. You first ship the minimum of your service in an alpha version, which is a bit buggy, which is not perfect, and not everything works well, but you'll learn and from there make another version which is a bit better, and then you continue. If you're interested in this implementation side of things, there's a few resources that can help. The first one is Public Service Design, a guide for the application of service design in public organizations. It's a big guide. You have a lot of information there about kind of the delivery phase. And then you have another resource by the Australian Government Digital Transformation Agency, which is just about the delivery process of service design. So you can check these two resources. I think they might be quite helpful. Okay, I told you we are in this kind of a trailer where it's a bit of an information overload with each question, because there might be some questions that you don't care about. So I'm going to go quite fast for you. And if it's a question that you really cared about, and you thought, oh, there wasn't enough yet, you still will get the notes at the end, and you will be able to continue to explore this question. So again, Mariana asked two questions, and this is the second one, which is how can I evaluate the value or the purpose of a service? And here I would suggest, it's starting with the question, what do you measure? What is the metric that will help you? And that's very different for any service. To know how you can evaluate things, you first need to know what you want to evaluate, and if you want to know that the service is going well, you need to know what's the best metric for that. I've made a list of 150 innovation metrics. It's, again, a free thing that you can check out. Maybe you'll find one metric there that inspires you and that you can use. There is a lot of metrics out there. You might know the NPS, which is the Net Promoter Score, which is a very simple one-question thing to see if the quality or if people would recommend your service. And that's kind of one way to see if a service has purpose. But one thing that I want to say here is that service quality is something that you can measure. In fact, you'll see here in the links, but there is even an equation that has been made by some academic people about how you can measure the quality of a service. And then on this Wikipedia page that will see here, you have a lot of links about kind of 4 surveys that you can do to measure the quality in a very quantitative way. But maybe it's not about a classical metric. Maybe you say, oh, our service is not about so much about the money or about the level of recommendation, but it's about the change that we can create. And for that, many nonprofits use a way to kind of realize how much success, how much impact their services have with a tool called Most Significant Change. And that's something that is quite interesting because it, instead of looking at numbers, it looks at stories, and it asks people, what is the biggest thing that changed for you with this service in a way? So definitely check that out. If you are maybe a bit like me, I'm not so much a big number guy. I'm not the quant guy, so I'm not the biggest expert on that. But I really love this thing here, which to me feels very right, which is looking at what has really changed in the lives of people and seeing these stories, because stories sometimes have just so much more power than one metric or a little graph that goes up. So that's it for this from Mariana. And the question was, how can we evaluate a service? Choose your metric right. Remember that we can measure the quality of a service. So don't get scared by people who tell you, no, it's not possible to measure it, so forget about it. And the other thing is sometimes it's not about measuring a number, but more about recording, collecting the stories of change. And that can be also very inspirational and show you that your service has really value and really a purpose. Now a question from Juneza, which asks, how do you communicate the value of service design to non-designers? So we formulated the question a little bit. I'd say, how can you pitch service design? You know, how can you show the world that this is a good thing? Again, a lot of resources here. I'm going to go back in this trailer mode where I'm going to show you a lot. But the very thing first is one that got often forgotten, which is empathize before you pitch. You know, in service design, we say our job is to not propose solutions. It's rather to empathize with people and then see what matters to them and then just help them with that. And that's exactly the thing that you should do before you try to convince someone about service design. You know, ask them, you know, what are the problems you have at the moment? You know, what are the challenges you have? What are the dreams you have at your work at the moment? They will give you a lot of information. Then you can ask also, you know, hey, what type of person are you? Are you more a numbers guy, or what do you like? Oh, what's the last thing that convinced you? And then they will tell you, oh, I read this story and it really changed my life, or we saw this report with all this data and it really changed our review on how we do business. Then you know, okay, this is a numbers guy, so I will have to use numbers. And ask them about their culture, get to know their culture. You know, how do they speak? Do they say fuck and shit and dumb things like that from time to time, and therefore you should allow yourself to do it too? Or is this more a very corporate setting where people are they really look at how they say things and they want to use the right and precise. Once you know that, then you usually already know how to pitch service design, because it will be kind of obvious, because they will tell you a problem and you will say, hey, the solution is service design, but he's a numbers guy, so I need a number to show him that service design is a solution to that problem. But if you don't know, after empathizing how you can pitch service design, here are a few ideas. The one is tell a story. There is this beautiful story. It's a short of 3 minutes that has been made by the guys and people at Fjord. And it asks these questions in some way, which is, why do you always go to that particular coffee shop? And it gives the answer. And it's a short story that tells really well why service design matters. And, you know, just share it or learn the story and adapt it to your context and then share it verbally. If you're speaking with numbers people, you know, show them real numbers of measured impact. Here, I have made a little website back in the days, which was a collection of case studies that I found over the internet, which showed the impact that the work had. And this could be inspiring, maybe finding a case study which shows that, hey, service design or a service design related way of working worked well for someone. So it might work for us. And if you're now more into kind of like, oh, I'm really serious about selling this service design thing, both internally or externally. Maybe you want to build your own agency or consultancy. Mark, again, the guy from the service design show, has a full course which helps you to sell service design. I didn't follow the course myself, but I know Mark quite well, and he's a lovely guy. So, I wouldn't recommend the course per se. I recommend Mark because I think he's a great guy, and I'm sure this course will be as lovely and smart as he is. And if you want even more, here are a few notes that I collected from Audrey Fletcher. She made an article which is about how to sell service design. One thing that I take from her way is show what service design is great for. Show, okay, it's great for a moment where we say, but can it help costs? Can it help cut costs? I think this is a great way to show like the real value of service design. And more content, even more, trailer. I'm giving you a bit of an informational. But if that's kind of the thing you want to go in more deeply, again, you have a bit of a video here that you can explore on that topic. Again, this one is again from Mark because Mark does a lot of good stuff around service design. So, Juneza, your question was, how do you communicate the value of service design to non-designers? The first thing I would say is empathize with them, learn their problems, learn their ways. And once you know that, it's going to be quite evident how you're going to sell it to them. And Constance asks, I think, the last question for today. How do you help your clients to see the benefit of design principles when they are heavily driven by delivery timelines? So, you might be in a big organization where, there is so much going on. There is so much pressure that we don't have the time to speak about service design principles or design principles. But before I answer your question, I see kind of two parts in that. If you think service design principles are the simple tips and ideas like the ones that I shared today, then it's pretty easy to get people excited because these are very simple things that you can apply tomorrow. And so it's not a big conversation to have because you can just say, hey, this worked for someone, let's try it, and we'll see if it works. So it's kind of more like proposing to try something in here. But then the other part, if you say service design principles are more about this kind of general guidelines that we follow to create a consistent way of delivering a good experience. In that case, I will start again with a question to the people you want to convince. And the question will be, why did you create brand colors, a logo, selected a specific typeface to use in your communication? Why did we do that in our organization? And then they will answer, and they might answer a few things like, hey, but it's obvious because it helps us to stay coherent between channels. It helps us to drive costs down because we don't have to start from scratch every time when we do communicate. And people recognize us more easily, which is a good thing. And that's exactly the answer why principles, even for service design or design in general, are really helpful because they help us stay coherent, they help us drive cost down, because once you have a recipe of how you want your service to be and what are the principles you want to follow, it's going to be easier. And then people will also recognize, oh, this is a service experience that's Nestle, oh, that's Swisscom, that's this organization. And then people recognize that. So start with a question, get people to answer the question and then build on that again. Obviously, there's a caveat here. Sure, it takes a one-time big investment at the start to decide which are these design principles, service design principles that you want to follow and that fit your organization. But once that is done, then it gets easier. It's like in marketing. You have to do a rebranding. It takes some time and money, but then life gets easier after the fact. So I hope this one helps. From the chat, I see that it seemed to be helpful. So if we summarize that one, how do you help your clients to see the benefit of design principles? I don't try to show them the benefits. I ask them what are the benefits of having guidelines in another field. And then we can translate these benefits and say, hey, if it works for marketing, let's try it for customer experience. Because it works in that field. It's the same thing. Okay, we still have a few minutes. So we still have 10 minutes left, and we'll finish exactly on time because, I'm a Swiss guy, so I have to start on time and finish on time. What I will do now is I will go over the chat to see your questions, and I will try to answer a few. So I'm going to take this one. Let me share that one with you. Let me take out my screen, which is, hi, Daniele. I'm sure a lot of us feel like out of place or unqualified while practicing service design. So how to tackle the imposter syndrome? Good question, because I still have that thing. I thought one day, oh, once I will write a book about it, I will not have that feeling anymore. Oh, it didn't work. I wrote another second book, still didn't work. I thought, oh, when I will teach at big universities, I will then feel like right with it. Didn't work either. Having like big brands for which I worked didn't help either. The one thing that helps me, and that's the one thing that I do, is I collect stories of change. I collect the stories of people who tell me, hey, we did this project together. This changed. It helped me so much. Thank you, mate. And I make a little folder with screenshots of all these messages. And when I'm really down, I just go there and say, oh no, what I do has value. Oh, people kind of like the work I do, and they see it matters for them. And then I kind of heal a bit my imposter syndrome like that. The other way I do it is then have kind of like a ritual where I go over these things, even when I'm not down. So just to start the day on a good mood and stuff like that. So the imposter syndrome, it's in a way, it's a blessing because it keeps you motivated to change and learn. It's also a curse because it's kind of like demotivating in a way. So keeping the stories and the testimonials of people, an email, a little conversation where people say, hey, this was so helpful. This is something that helps me to remember, oh, I'm not so bad after all. It's kind of okay. So thanks for the question. Deepak, that was a really good question. And now let me see if I can pop up another question. And this one I think is from Kevin. The question is, question on design principles. Are they intended as metaphors or literal principles? Example, urinal cleaning cost feels very specific, but with a generic morale. Try the simple things first. And that's, I intend them sometimes as both. And that's where I'm still evolving in my writing, I have to say. And they started to be very, very literal, like really just about, this is about the urinals, use that, put a sticker on your urinals. But the more I got into them, the more I discovered that there is kind of like a secret message behind them, where what I noticed is that usually these principles are an observation of a service or an experience. And from that observation, we can learn something, and then it can change even more the way we do things. So for example, if I had to write this principle today, I think I would change a bit the title into, bring the little child back into the service, or I think it's more about this element of, like the hidden child, the one that most people don't talk about. Use that, the fact that men, when they pee, they play with their dick. they play firefighter with a dick. That's hidden truths, but it's a funny element. And here, therefore, I will go with that element. So these principles, they evolve over time. My understanding also evolves over time. So to answer it in a short way, they are meant as both literal, like the example could be very specific, like put a urinal, put a sticker on the urinal, or they could be a bit broader and say, hey, how does that help you specifically in a more general way? I hope that helps, Kevin, but thanks for the question. We still have 5 minutes left, so I'm gonna continue. So we have something from Everaldo, and the question is, as a professional whose experience been in other design fields, transitioning to UX design, I reframed previous projects in a UX context. I believe something similar could be used for service design. Indeed, I think if you transition to a new field, don't forget about the field that you came from. There is still a lot, and I think that's it's kind of a secret, if we can say it like that. I try to get people excited about service design, but what's the big difference about UX and service design? Like 99% of it is basically the same things, and so a lot of what you have learned in one field, be it marketing, be it UX, be it architecture, be it psychology, project management, you can bring that back in your new practice. And if something isn't clear for you at that moment, just use these skills from your past experiences, because they still matter. Service design steals a lot of tools from other fields, and there are just a few tools which are very specific. Personas, for example, is something that we use in marketing, something that we use in graphic design, something that we use in service design, in UX. It's used everywhere. So there is no way to think like, oh, now I'm a service designer, so I have to throw everything in the trash that I learned before. But you really can build on that. I hope, I'm not sure I really answered your specific question, but I tried at least to go on that direction. Okay, now we still have 3 minutes left, so let's continue. Thank you so much for putting all the questions. I will try to keep the remaining questions of the session for maybe next webinar session. If you would love a next webinar session, just tell me, do another one in the chat so that I know that this has value for you. So we have here a message from Divya, I think, which says, how can we co-create project-specific service design principles? So here, what I would suggest to you is, something very simple is get everyone in a room that you want from this project and ask them, okay, what's important to us at the end? How do we see, let's imagine now it's the end of the project. What helped us get there? What are the things, the ideas, the tips that we followed that made it a good project? This is one way to do it. Another way to do it is, use the principles that you find from other people. You might Google design principles. There is a lot of websites that share the design principles from other organizations, and you can basically steal them and say, hey, let's make a bit of a shopping session. And you look at how other people, what are their design principles, and then say, oh, these are relevant to us, these are not relevant to us, these we don't understand, and make a bit of a list, and then make a voting session where say, which are the 3 most important ones. And then you will gradually come to principles that matter for your specific context, but based on the experience of others, which might be helpful. A way that others do it also is using this kind of stuff, like the book Service Design Principles. I've made even a template, which is on Miro, where you have all these principles as little cards that you can use to, as a team, say, oh, this is important to us. This is something that we could use to improve our service. This is not helpful. And so this might be also another way to do it. But this is obviously a shameless plug to get all of the money from you. But you can do basically the same by looking at the principles of other people or coming up with them by yourself. Okay, and I have the last question because we have 1 minute left, which is from Burku. How can we get involved in the service design community? And I'll keep that short. Service design, practical service design. This is one thing that you can Google. There is a very lovely Slack community, Service Design Network. They have a very lovely Slack community, and there is a big community out there of people within the Service Design Network. So check these out. And there is another community which is on the Service Design, on the Swiss Innovation Academy. And this brings me exactly on the next spot of my slide, which is first, thank you for watching. And the second, join the community. There is a community that I'm slowly building, which is the Service Design Principles Club, where I try to experiment and find new principles with other people from all around the world, like the one that you had that I showed in this presentation. It's a free thing that you can join, where you see my drafts, you can share your own drafts, share your own ideas. We can build on them to find, as a community, new service design principles. So how you can get involved? Join at least this community, but also join the other communities if you like. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you so much for joining me today. I've stolen 1 minute of your time. I'm very sorry, but I had a lovely time with you guys. Thank you so much. I will keep your questions for the next webinar if you want one. But until then, I wish you all a lovely rest of the weekend, week. It's not the weekend yet, of the week. A lovely weekend ahead. And please continue to observe all the lovely experience that you have. Take a photo. That's how you start to become a real service designer. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for everything.